Welcome back to the Beehive. And we have a really great show for you tonight. Sorry, we're like 25 minutes late. We had a little bit of mix up and it was my fault. So I apologize and the show must go on. So we're going to go ahead and have a really great show tonight, a live stream show. And we're going to talk about the Champion Speedway and with the promoter of the Champion Speedway in Owego, New York. I hope I said that right. And we're going to have a really great show with a promoter. And who is that? His name is Jason Bonsignore. And Jason, we're going to go ahead and bring you on now. And let's see. How you doing, Jason?
Good. How are you? Sorry about the mix-up on the time there.
It happens. It's no big deal. I just hope people aren't mad because, I always start on time and I messed up this time, so I apologize.
No worries.
It's funny. So thank you so much for joining us tonight on the show. And I went ahead and posted that you're going to be on the show, and I just thought maybe like one person would say, "Oh, all right," and then we had like hundreds of people really like you. So I was really shocked. I didn't know how popular you were. You're very popular.
Interesting.
I don't know, we don't know each other that well, so I didn't know what the response would be, and everyone's like, yeah, Jason. So that was cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it's really good. So we're happy to have you tonight, and we're going to talk some Speedway. In particular, we're going to talk New York Speedway at the Champion. So how did your 2020 season go, Jason?
Well, we had half a season because of the COVID situation, but it was the best half a season we've had in years. So very good, actually.
So you went ahead and you had half the season. That's good. You went ahead and at least you had a good half a season, so that's good. And
yeah, we didn't get the approval. We didn't get the approval to open with spectators until July, so we sat around pretty nervous like everybody else, wondering what was going to happen. And then we were fortunate enough to get the clearance in July, and the crowds got bigger and bigger each week. It was really fantastic. It was our best year in 20 years crowd-wise.
Wow. Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. A couple months back, you promoted the Outlaw National Championship. It was a 2-day event for the 2020 United States National Championship because the Costa Mesa Speedway could not run the national championship this year. Why? Because of the COVID, and they have a state-run fairgrounds, and the state said, no, you cannot run that event this year. You cannot run any events. And so what happened was Jason over here, this good gentleman next to me, Jason, went ahead and ran that national championship, which Brock Nickel won. And I was wondering, I'm going to ask you this question, how did you think of doing this? That was genius.
Well, we had a successful U.S. Open a few weeks prior, like we always do. And, I realized that there wasn't going to be any championship for the season with the situation out west, and started thinking that maybe we would try to help the AMA and help the sport and have an AMA national. But obviously, we were late in the project and there was only a few weeks notice, and it was short timing for some guys. So we said we would go ahead and do it, and then it just kind of fell short at the last minute with the AMA and a few of the riders. And I said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and do it anyways for the guys that want to have something to race for. And I was fortunate enough to have Billy Gennaro and Brock Nickel, and Ronnie Corey made an exciting comeback that shocked a lot of people and rode awesome. Blake Borello was there and Dylan Rummel. So we had a good field of the guys, some of the fastest guys in the country. And it was great for the crowd. It was great for the boys. And we had a fun weekend.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. I'm really excited you had that event because Speedway needed that this year because of the COVID thing and Costa Mesa not running. That was really a genius event to do, even though you had not much time to promote that and to get it running. But it was a really great idea, and Brock Nichols very happy you did that one.
Yeah, well, Brock was awesome, and Doug came out for it, and Brock just wrote his heart out. You know, he's such a great kid and has such a professional program right now that it was a great event to have for kids like that are really deserving of an opportunity to showcase their talents, and were kind of held back by the COVID season. You know, we, out of respect to Costa Mesa, we didn't want to call it the U.S. National Championship. Obviously, that's the real U.S. National, but we called it the Outlaw National to give it some hype and some importance. And, you know, obviously there's the AMA National too. So we felt like we did our little part to help the sport, hopefully, for a tough season.
You definitely did. That was just awesome. That was really, I was shocked when I heard that, and I'm like, oh, very good. I was wondering like what was going to happen this year, because we've had a national champion since, you know, a long time ago, since 1968, sure, when Steve Bass won the first. Actually, Rick Woods won it in 1968 and 1969. Steve Bass won at Costa Mesa in 69. And Rick Woods won at the 1968. So that's good. You kept that streak alive.
Yeah, I don't know. There'll be an asterisk next to it in the record book, but at least there's something there, right?
Yeah. Hey, that's awesome. I was gonna ask you this question, Jason. Like, you're over there in New York, and who are some of your like good riders there? Like, I don't know that many riders in New York.
Well, we've been fortunate. We kind of followed the Costa Mesa, you know, replica for a lot of years here. We've had some older riders that have hung on for a long time that are still very good and do a great job. Lenny McBride came back to racing a few years ago. Tough McBride's younger brother, and is one of our veteran riders. But he was our points champion 2 years ago and still had a great season this year. He battled some injuries, but won a couple main events. And then we've got Spencer Porterero, who's really coming on. He actually, I think, beat Dylan Rummel and Blake Borello 3 or 4 times those last couple weekends at our track, which was really a great accomplishment for him. And he's a young, hungry kid who's got a lot of talent and really super young person too. A lot of fun to work with. And then Mikey Buman's been a real solid racer here for the last 10 years or so, and Norm Robinson decided to help him out with a bike and get him back riding, and he won a couple main events. Casey Donhold's done real well here the last 8 or 10 years, and he's taking a little break right now, but hopefully he'll be back this season. And Adam Middle was really our dominant rider going back 5, 6, 7 years ago. He had a spell of, I don't know, a handful of seasons where he was really the guy to beat, and he won a main event this season and is still real fast. So we've got a nice, solid show when everybody shows up on a given night. And, just the more track time these guys get and the more experience, then hopefully the gap gets a little smaller between the East Coast and the West Coast.
Yeah, that's great. And you guys have a lot of riders that have been around a long time. I know Casey, he took the year off this year and probably went fishing or hunting.
He rode the first couple of weeks and did well, and then I think was a little burned out. And it'd be great to have him come back next season again. But with or without, we've got a nice solid show right now. We ended up with 12 to 15 brand new guys at the start of this season, which was really a great growth for us. And I'm trying to really emphasize the junior program moving forward. We've got 10 or 12 junior bikes that I have that I'm keeping ownership of, and I'm trying to do the Billy Hamill program where I'm just loaning them out to kids for free. And we wanted to spend a little more time getting some more of them together. I've got 5 or 6 of them together now, and a few other families went out and bought some bikes. And we've got some promising kids coming up, but I'd like to spend some more time finishing the other ones I have and get 10 or 12 that I can just take to the track and do training schools with, like the Hagen Academy was a few years ago. And that's the goal moving forward.
Awesome. That's amazing that you're getting all these bikes together and helping these riders, because there's a lot of people back in New York, probably some good riders that don't really know like what Speedway is, or maybe they need to learn Speedway from the academy and develop some more riders. And you have some new riders this year. That's really great, because I know New York has a lot of older riders that have been around for a long time, and some of those guys are really good. But it's good to bring up new blood and help the sport grow, because that's exactly how it grows, is the young guys coming up and the new riders, filling in. These old riders, get old, and then the new ones need to come up. So that's cool.
Yeah, no doubt. The youth's really the future. We've got to emphasize that.
Yeah, exactly. Speedway is a sport for the young people. It's for the young people, teenagers to 20s, and then when you start getting 30s, you start getting a little bit older.
Yeah, well, 30 is young for Speedway, but we got to get some of those teenagers going, though. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was mentioning about like the high level, like in Europe and racing for the world championship. I mean, that's a young man sport for the high level, but in New York, probably they can have any age come out and race, and that's really good. That's really awesome. So that's cool.
The world stuff's.
When was your last race?
I was just going to say the world stuff's for the young guys, except for Greg Hancock.
Yeah, Greg Hancock, he won his championship at what, 46?
Yeah, and he could still win another one if he wanted to, I think.
And he could win at your track any day of the week.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah, the vision of Greg Hancock always comes in my mind. When he was on the GP series, he was at the Paris Speedway practicing, and I was there practicing also. And he obviously took the track, and everybody's like off the track for Hancock. And Greg just burned up that track. It's a fast track a little bit, and he just went full speed. And his line was like by the wall, and he was like riding it really far deep, and then flying out of that thing. And he was full bore. He was full throttle. I was like, oh my God.
He's amazing.
The guy is totally crazy. And so when was your last Speedway race? Was it the Outlaw Championship, or did you have another one after that?
No, that was the last one for the season. I coach youth hockey during the winter, so I was lucky enough that they let me get away for that weekend to be able to do it. And then the weather starts to change after October here too, where it becomes tough to run events and get people out.
Exactly. So talking about ice hockey, that's an awesome sport. I love that sport. I am an LA Kings fan, and you played professional hockey. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, that was my occupation, so to speak, for a lot of years, and afforded me the opportunity to be able to, have some resources to be able to start Speedway up again. Now it's to where Speedway is really the fun thing for me, and hockey, you kind of got burned out on and spent, my whole life doing, but I'm still involved real heavily for the kids. My son's playing, and kind of a up and coming promising player right now, so I enjoy helping the kids.
Oh, that's really great. And so you played, your rookie season was for the Edmonton Oilers. Is that what you played for?
Yep, I was in Edmonton, drafted by Edmonton, and then traded to Tampa Bay and spent a few years playing there, and played in Europe, played in Finland and Norway and Switzerland. Played with the Olympic team for a while. I've kind of been all over the place. It's shown me the world,
Wow, that's great. And how many seasons did you play in NHL? Like 3 or 4?
Yeah, parts of 4 or 5 seasons in the NHL, and then probably 13 or 14 professionally, all over the place. So spent my time.
That's amazing. I used to go to all the hockey games, and I used to hang out with some of the hockey players, and they're like great athletes. These guys are studs, and you were probably one of them too. So, what position did you play in hockey? What was your position?
I was a centerman. I played forward and was expected to be a scorer, not a fighter.
You were a scorer. Ah, so you're a fast skater.
Yeah, I guess I was pretty fast. Yep.
Yeah, that's awesome. So did you ever get in any fights, like fighting guys?
Yeah, you always, you can't avoid that in that sport, but it wasn't really my job. I was supposed to be one of the finesse players, and back then we had guys who were there to fight to protect the finesse guys.
So when you get in a fight, you like turn it over to like Marty McSorley or something and say, "Hey, Marty, come help me here."
Yeah, actually, he was my coach for a season in Springfield in the American League, so I knew Marty a little bit.
That guy was a great goon. I really liked him, and he was a good fighter.
Yeah, no doubt.
I saw him at a hockey game once, and he was sitting in the stands, I think, when he retired. And I'm like, there's Marty McSorley. And I didn't want to mess with that guy. He's tough.
No, for sure.
Did you ever play with Wayne Gretzky, or was he like before your time?
I played against Wayne about 5 or 6 times. In fact, probably the second or third game before he retired was against us. And had one memorable game against them when he was playing with the Rangers in Madison Square Garden. The coach came up to me and said my line was going to get matched against Gretzky all night long. So they scored the first shift against us, and I was like, oh, no, this is going to be a long night. And then fortunately, my line ended up scoring all 3 goals, and we came back and won 3-1. And the next day, there was a cool photo with me and Gretzky on the front page of the New York Times, which I still have.
Awesome.
And
awesome.
I don't know if you remember the lead singer for Skid Row was Sebastian Bach. And his brother was actually our goaltender that night. And Sebastian was at the game, and he was all pumped up that we won. So I got to meet Sebastian afterwards. That was cool.
Oh, awesome. So you were on the cover of the newspaper, like with Wayne Gretzky and you, that together, right?
Yeah, the New York Times, that was a good one for scrapbook.
Wow. Yeah, he was amazing. I used to go watch Wayne Gretzky when he was like a rookie at Edmonton, and actually I was at the Miracle on Ice game. Have you heard of that game or not? The Miracle on Ice?
Oh, yeah, of course. Wow.
I was there. And
no way, that's
I was
awesome.
live, and it was, it was amazing. And I was sitting a little bit higher because it was a playoff game. I think the Edmonton was up like 4-0 or 5-0 or something like that. I forgot what the score was like that. And then it was the third period, and the Kings just slowly start coming back, and then Edmonton a little bit was on their heels. And then the Kings came back and they tied it, and then they won it with like 3 seconds left in the game or something. And everybody, they were losing like 4-0 in a playoff game. And as a hockey player, that if you're in a playoff game, an NHL Stanley Cup playoff game, and you're down 4-0 in the third period, is that good?
Yeah, you got your work cut out for you for a comeback.
Oh, it was amazing. And then the Kings scored like 5 straight goals to take down the Edmonton in like game 1. And, it was really exciting. But I have to tell you, Jason, that, I was there. So I got to experience it like live, not on the TV. And people were falling over. I was sitting kind of high because I was a college student and I was really poor. I had no money. And, I was sitting up high, and people were like falling over. They were so happy. They're like, ah! And they were falling, and people were going. I was like, God, this is nuts. I mean, it was insane. That was more exciting than the hockey game. Was watching the people like fall over and like I thought they were gonna kill themselves.
Good stuff.
Yeah, it was awesome. So we love hockey, and that's cool. And I made a hockey movie a long time ago, a low budget hockey movie back in '93, and Sean McConnell was in it. I don't think he liked that movie. He was a hockey player. And
was Scott Delosio in that too?
Huh?
Was Scott Delosio in that too?
No, we had Mike Butters. He played in the NHL. He was on the Quebec Nordiques and the Colorado Avalanche. Colorado Avalanche. Yep. Do you know Mike Butters or not? No?
I know the name, yeah.
Yeah, he was a big
I've skated with Sean quite a bit.
Yeah. Sean's a good skater. That guy can skate. He's good.
I couldn't keep up. That guy's awesome.
He's a stud. I don't know what happened to that guy, but he's good. And
he's great.
We just made this low budget movie, and it was like it wasn't really that good. I mean, it got its money back. We used the Tampa Bay Lightning uniforms, so except we made a different logo. And
cool.
It was cool. It was called the Conquest. It was my first motion picture that I did. I wrote, directed, and produced it, and I spent 1 year of my life making it. And it was about a black man who conquered the sport of ice hockey because there's no black guys in hockey very much. And I thought that was cool, black guy going to a white man's world and being successful. So it was not that great of a movie. It made its money back, so it wasn't a loser, but it was a lot of fun, and I was tired when I got done making that movie. It was crazy. So anyways, I was thinking of you, and I don't think Sean liked that movie. I kind of had a part of Sean doing some like crazy stuff, and I think he didn't like it. So, but we had fun. We were laughing. So
Nice.
Sean probably hates me now. So that's cool. And so anyways, we're gonna go ahead and talk more about the Speedway. And I saw you in a couple of Speedway photos. Did you race Speedway, Jason?
Yeah, I raced for quite a bit for 10 years or so. Nobody was really supposed to know about it with my hockey contract.
Wow. So you're how good of a rider were you? I didn't know that much.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much made the main events most nights I rode and have won, a handful. I mean, if I practice a little bit, I can keep up with the fast guys here. Hanging 4 or 5 inches less on my body here to be able to go overseas. But I mean, I can hold my own now.
Well, you're a big dude, so that's cool. You rode that good, being a big guy. So that's awesome. I mean, wow.
Key is making yourself look small, right?
Yeah, you have to.
Somehow.
I'm a big guy too, so I have to like look little. And I used to be good when I was skinny. It's not a big fat guy sport or a big heavy guy sport. It's a little skinny guy sport.
Yep.
So I was going to ask you, I saw you in California a few years ago. Like I saw you around in San Bernardino and things. And did you move to California? Is that what happened? And then you moved back to New York, or did you promote in California? What happened?
Yeah, no, just have always been a huge fan of the sport, and the history of American Speedway. And Sean McConnell and I had become real close, and he had spent a lot of time out here. And he had talked about how he always wanted to be involved in promoting a track. And myself being the big history buff that I've always been, I was kind of heartbroken to see that San Bernardino had closed and Ascot had closed and Irwindale and these tracks had gone away. So we had this crazy idea to restart IMS, and like I said, me being the history buff that I was, I wanted it to look as much like the original IMS as we could make it. And I think we came darn close, minus some bleacher seats, you know. So I traveled back and forth that season quite a bit, and Sean and his wife did a great job of keeping things going when I wasn't around, and we had a great staff, Benny Mears and Racer X, John Pavia, and a number of people that really pitched in to help out with that thing. And Brad Oxley came out and Lenny, and they helped us build the surface the first time, and we actually rebuilt the track twice. We got talked into letting a Supercross promoter mess with it during the winter the first year, and kind of made a real mess out of the thing. And then it was a blessing in disguise anyways, even though it cost us a ton of money, because the original track was built up real high off the ground. There was a BMX track there after Charlie Venegas's track, and the dirt was all still there when we started. We didn't know what to do with it, so we built the original track up high off the ground, and it was great for the spectators that were in the bleachers. But if you walked to get a hot dog or whatever, you couldn't see over the crash wall. So the second track we built was actually much better, and it was almost identical to the original IMS. And it was, you know, a lot of people know that we're history people, but it was only 400 or 500 feet from the original track. You know, it was pretty cool.
That's cool. I tried to ride there in 2012, and my bike wasn't there, so I went bumming bikes. I had my uniform and all my stuff, my steel shoe that's hanging up there somewhere, and I went there to try to race, and I'm asking riders like, hey, can I ride your Speedway bike? Because I have my uniform, and I need a bike. And they're all like, dude, like, hey, good loss, you know, screw you. And I'm like, oh, so I really want to ride. And I went up, I was so desperate to ride at your track there, I went up to a junior rider, this little junior rider, and I said, hey, dude, can I ride your junior Speedway bike? I want to race.
I mean, I'm real proud that we did it and successfully got it back for everybody to enjoy for 5 or 6 years there. You know, it was getting hard for me not being able to be hands-on and not being able to do it exactly how I wanted to when I was in New York. So I could sort of see the writing on the wall at a certain point, and I got out of it. The rent was really expensive there. You know, we were paying $5,000 a month just in rent for the parking lot. You know, it was crazy. And we didn't have all the concessions or anything. You know, it was hard to keep it going with having to pay the bills during the winter and everything. But you know, Sean and I still get along great, and I am proud that we did it and have some great videos and memories of it, you know.
So you had to pay $5,000 a month during the off season too, or just during the race season?
Yeah, I think they helped us a little bit once in a blue moon, but they were not real cooperative about the rent situation, you know. And then I think now they built a huge building across the street where the old parking lots were, and they were doing those raves for a while and getting tons of people, and I think they thought they'd turn it into one of the rave areas, but then that kind of, I think, has slowed down a lot, and probably didn't do any of that now with the COVID stuff. So I think the lot's just sitting there. The parking lot lights and stuff are still there, but it's a tough game nowadays, you know, to start from scratch.
Oh, it's difficult. You would think that they would want to help you out to kind of help you be successful, to maybe give you a little bit better breaks on the rent, or, you know, they notice you're struggling, you're trying to like get it going. You know, you think they would try to help you because it would help them if, you know, you had a successful venue too.
Well, especially when it sits there doing nothing right now, you know. It's just like Ascot. I mean, the place sat there for another 10 years with nothing on it, you know. It's a shame. Yeah,
really bad business on the the city or whoever was running that venue, the state or whatever. That's very stupid, you know, thinking. So changing the topic, and that's really cool. You guys tried to doing it. And, oh, one more question is, now we all went to well, I know you did because you tried to get it back to the original shape of the track and everything. What was the difference between the IMS in the 1970s and the IMS, let's say, in the 2000s? Was it the population changed? There was more minorities, or, you know, what was the difference? Because we all went to IMS in the 70s and it was rocking. So what do you think was the difference?
Just about 2,500 people a night sitting in the bleachers.
That's right.
But I mean, that's at all of our tracks, you know. I mean, sadly, and we've had this conversation a million times. You know, is it the moment? Was it the moment in time where the drinking age was, you know, younger and people were more inclined to party and weren't so worried about driving home with a couple of beers, you know, after the races? Was it that there was less entertainment to compete against? You know, nowadays kids have phones and video games and all these different sports that they're into, you know. And my father makes a good point. You know, he talks about how back then in the 60s and 70s, more hard-nosed kids were being brought up, you know. I mean, now kids are being raised by single mothers, and there's more divorced families, and there's less places to ride dirt bikes and get into this stuff, you know. I mean, it's just not like it used to be. There's just a different mentality out there.
Oh, exactly. It's a totally different world now. It is. It's just totally different. I mean, when I was a kid, I was raised in Orange over there, not too far from your track there. And we used to have like lots of dirt riding areas. And every day after school, I would be on my motorcycle, like riding everywhere and down the railroad tracks, up the mountains. And now I think people can't do that like before.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with Speedway, the biggest thing is back then, and the same thing in New York, the crowds were big, the money was good. You could go down there and ride in front of your friends from high school and be asked to sign an autograph after the races, and you felt like you were somebody important. So there was a reason to want to be a Speedway rider, you know. There was a reason to want to be Bruce Penhall or Rick Woods or Michael Bass. And I think we need to get back to that, you know. Now there's not as much money in the purses. There's not as many places to race. There's not as many reasons to want to be a Speedway rider, unfortunately. And that's the key, is we have to figure out how to make it attractive to get people into it again, you know?
Exactly. Now, well, I know that the riders, like I had Max Romo on the show a couple days ago and Dylan, and they said that like the minute they got on a Speedway, and I had Eddie Castro yesterday, and they all said that once they got on a Speedway bike, that was it. Like they were hooked. So, you know, being a rider on a Speedway bike is pretty easy because it's really fun to ride a Speedway bike. And these good riders, and a lot of riders, maybe your riders too, once they experience practicing or getting on a Speedway bike, they really love it because it's a thrill to have like no brakes and go 0 to 60, 0 to 80 in 2 seconds. I mean, everyone likes that one.
Oh, it's the greatest sport in the world, you know, and we all shake our head wondering why it's not bigger, you know. But the problem is somehow we have to go out there and make it bigger. We've got to expose it to the masses, you know, and instead of building a racetrack in a field in Owego, New York, or in Paris, California, we need to take it to where there's already a captive audience and show our sport off. But the important thing is we need to show it off in its best form, you know. And Speedway, we all know that it can be the best show on earth if it's presented properly. But then you have the people that mean well and they're trying to help it, and they'll take it to a car track in try to put a show on, but it's not a good show because Speedway bikes can't, put a good show on a clay track with metal guardrails, and then it becomes the opposite. Speedway can be the worst show in the world. If it can be terrible flat track if the track surface isn't good and the facility, and you don't have the right riders, so it's a delicate operation.
It is. When I was a young whippersnapper, I raced in the '78 World Qualifiers in
Santa Ana,
and then we went up to Northern California for 2 meets in Sacramento and Auburn. And when I was in Sacramento, the night before, they had a automobile demolition derby on the same speedway track, and they had some crashes the night before, and the track was really bad. There was Bondo on the track, so we were riding with like Bondo, and we woo, and luckily for me, I was a pole rider, and I had a good night. I beat Bobby Schwartz one night and Mike Bass scratch the next race.
Nice.
Night. So I was doing good, and then I got crashed and almost broke my arm. So that was the end of my night. But we had a rider that night. The story was not about the winning. The story was about the Bondo on the track. I was resting because, in between my races, I was pretty tired. And Michael Bass was coming up to me like, "Hey, Brian, what do you got in that engine?" And I'm like, "Hey, I got a Jerry Fairchild engine, and it's really fast, Mike." And I beat Mike, and I saw Mike coming at me, and I'm like, "Oh no, Michael Bass is gonna beat me up, he's gonna kill me." I beat him, so he's like, "Brian, I hate your guts," boom, And I was like, "Give me a hockey punch or something." And Michael Bass was nice. He's a nice guy. He's like, "Hey, Brian, what do you got in that engine? It's really fast." And I'm like, "Oh, Mike Bass called me my name and was like being good to me." So I was happy. But what happened that night was this guy, his name was Porky McCabe. Do you know Porky McCabe?
I know the name. Yeah, I don't know who he is.
Yeah, he had this Porky the Pig, logo on his front. I was like a punky 17-year-old kid at the time, and he was like 27 or 28, like an old man next to me. I was like, "Oh, he's old." And he hated me, and he always liked to beat me, but he didn't beat me very much, maybe 1 time or 0 times, I'm not sure. But he was mean, and he like hated my guts, and so, but I liked him, and I was like, "Hey, I'm a little kid, 17." So we go up to the Sacramento, and we're on the track riding, and I was resting at the time because I was sitting down in my chair, working on my bike, resting. It was a big race, and next thing I heard is a big crash and everything. And Porky, the guy who hated me, he actually hit some Bondo on the track. He flew through the wall. He liked to ride the outside, which was not good at that track. And then he hit his head on a railroad post high, and then he was paralyzed for life because of that car racing the night before.
Yeah. Not good.
That was not good. And then he got in a wheelchair. I felt so sorry for him because I liked the guy. He hated my guts, but I liked the guy because, I was beating him all the time, so why would I be mad? I was winning the guy, so I didn't hate him. And so when he injured himself, I went to Porky and I said, "Porky, can I do anything for you? Can I help you?" And he was mad, and he said, "Just go away. I don't like you." And I said, "Okay, Porky," And then he ended up passing away a few years later because he had one of those bolts stuck in his leg because I think he was paralyzed from the neck down or something. And then he had a bolt go through his leg when they were putting him in his chair, and he had like gangrene, and he died from that. So it was bad, all because of a car race the night before.
Yeah.
So, and but also, you're right about the location of the speedway track. I lived in Orange, and we had this big baseball field. I used to play baseball there too. I was a baseball player when I was a kid, and it was being like condemned or something. There was they used to have like a trash facility underneath there, and I guess the fumes or something were coming up, and so they took the baseball field away. It's a huge park. It's Yorba Park off the Chapman Avenue 55 freeway going east. Right on the corner next to the big creek, there's a big lot, and I was near my home. I was like walking distance, and they just disbanded it. The baseball park got moved to McPherson Junior High, but there's this big lot there, and I just visioned all the time of like buying that land because it's kind of condemned land for like kids or whatever for that, and then building a big speedway arena right there in the middle of Orange. Wouldn't that be cool? Wouldn't that be cool?
I think we all have those dreams when we're driving along on the highway and we see the ideal place, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you were to throw Speedway at that Yorba Park and be able to buy the land, and it's big enough for a parking lot, it's big enough for a Speedway, like Costa Mesa Speedway track, and I bet you could get some people in there if you didn't get people mad with the noise.
Yeah, when I was driving around in California and I'd drive by the old Miller Brewery where old Irwindale was, you'd always envision grabbing a bulldozer and just knocking that stuff out of the way and putting Irwindale back there again, you know.
Oh. Yeah, Miller Lite bought that land, and they got rid of Irwindale. They built that big brewery, like we care.
Yeah.
So. I was going to ask you a question, Jason. You have a lot of Speedway bikes. How many Speedway bikes do you have? And I see you selling a lot of parts. How much stuff do you really have over there in New York?
Too much. Oh boy, I probably have about 100 bikes now. You know, I've been collecting for years to be able to do some sort of a museum at one of the tracks, you know, and the problem with my track in Owego is it's in a flood zone. So we've had some major floods there, and I'm real nervous to put up any sort of a permanent building and have all the memorabilia there. And then my track in Green, New York is just a little bit too far where I'm not there often enough myself to be able to feel comfortable having the stuff there. So ironically, there's a deal coming around right now where it's kind of exciting. I don't want to say too much and jinx myself, but hopefully I'm getting hold of an old historical track here in New York State that's built for flat track, you know, and one of the oldest tracks in the state. And there's an old motorcycle shop building there. And hopefully we can put the museum there if this deal comes together.
Oh, awesome. Oh, that's really cool. So do you own that land in Owego, or is that just something you lease, or how does that work?
No, I own the land. I've owned it for 25 years now, which is crazy to think it's been that long already. But yeah, no, I own the tracks, and that's the advantage here is we're not renting somebody else's property, you know, because that's always a difficult deal.
Oh, big time. Oh, we learned that one from San Bernardino, I think, is making that.
Yeah. Well, it's neat. I mean, the guys enjoy coming to our track from California. It's a lot different than Costa Mesa because we don't have a curfew and everybody's allowed to camp out at the property, and we stay up late at night and have parties, and you know, it's really great for socializing with everybody. We just stay there all night long, and you don't have to leave the property if you don't want to, you know. So.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So is your track like a slick track like Costa Mesa? Is it like a hard slick track?
No, we've really prided ourselves on having some serious dirt. I mean, I really miss the old days of the multiple racing lines and tracks like IMS, and I mean, we definitely have had our years where it was slick, you know, when I was inexperienced and didn't know as much, but over the years I've really learned that having multiple racing lines is what, you know, makes the fans entertained, and that's the crowd started to disappear when the tracks got slicker, and you got to have some dirt out there, you know. So like Billy Gennaro, I mean, holy cow, he goes around the track, and I've got to take a broom out in the pits the next morning and broom off everybody's pit tables because there's so much dirt out there. But the guys rave about it, and, you know, Brock, Nickel, and Billy and those guys all said, you know, like it's the most raceable, you know, the track in Owego right now is the most raceable track in the States, I think. It's just got the most racing lines on it, you know, and the track in Green, New York, I had closed for 8 years. I had sold it and then reopened it last season, and it was built on a gravel bed, and the track sat so long that it's taken us a little time to get the surface good again. So it's rough, but sometimes that makes some entertaining racing too, you know. But no, we're all about the dirt.
Oh, the dirt is everything. I know Costa Mesa has been cheap on the dirt on the outside. There's no passing anymore like the old days, so it changes the racing. It's like whoever gets the gate, who gets in the first place, the first turn, they're usually the winner if they're a good rider.
Yeah, well, nobody builds a better racetrack than Brad. I mean, he's awesome. But and there's been some nights the track's been spectacular. But I don't know if it's just so much that they have the, you know, the break in August there with the fair and everything. He's got his challenges to try to keep the track good all the time with dirt. And insurance and crashes are, you know, a worry these days for a lot of the promoters. But we've tried to go old school, you know.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're right. Brad's an awesome track builder. And I said, Brad's been building Speedway tracks since he was in diapers. And,
yeah, he's the best.
He's awesome. I mean, I think, and seriously, Jason, I think there's no better track builder than Brad Oxley.
Well, look at those tracks he built in Long Beach. You know, when you hear Eric Gunderson and, you know, Bruce Pennell and all those guys say how great the tracks were, then that speaks volumes, you know.
It does. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's hard to build a speedway track. You think it's easy, you just throw some dirt, and it's not that easy.
No, it takes a lot of, you know, trial by error and learning the hard way. I was lucky I had some of these guys to, you know, lean on a little bit and learn from. And I mean, I'm at a point where I could tell you all the things to do, but it's funny, I own these road graders and these tracks and the equipment, and I've never driven them. The problem with me is I live so far away from the tracks that I need guys to do that stuff. My house is 2.5 hours away from my facilities.
Wow.
So I'm the water boy when I get there, but I need guys to run the road grader, you know.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart because there's too much to know to do all that yourself and to have a few workers. That's awesome. So what's your 2021 plans like, Jason, over there? Do you have plans or do you not have plans?
Oh no, we're full bore, you know, full speed ahead here. I'm getting older, but I'm not that old yet. I'm 44, so even though I feel like I've already done it for a lifetime, I've still got a good 20 years left or something. And now I'm getting into this new project here, hopefully this season, that could be really huge for everything back here. I mean, I've always had this dream of having an Ascot kind of facility, and this place could be like a mini Ascot back here, you know. So really keeping my fingers crossed that it's all going to work out. I've got to go to some town meetings the next couple months to get things finalized, but if this materializes, it'll be really great for the sport and for flat track and go-karts and everything back here too. And then we're full speed ahead with the track in Owego, and my track in Green we're going to use for special events. And I've got a real big following of ATV guys too right now, and go-karts, and kind of looking at adding a new track out back just for ATVs and go-karts down at Owego, so we can keep the speedway surface just for the speedway bikes. But we're knees deep in this whole thing.
So if you get this new facility, Jason, you're gonna have a speedway track, a flat track, a TT track, and all these tracks? Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. The really cool thing is that hopefully we're going to be able to put a American-sized speedway track across the parking lot. But then we can have a special event quarter-mile speedway track on the inside of the big track, which would be huge because kids with any ambition to go to Europe here don't have anywhere to train on a bigger track, you know.
Mm. Oh, that's awesome. So you're going to have a quarter-mile track and then a smaller Costa Mesa or Paris-sized track?
Yeah, that's the plan, hopefully. And then there's a TT also, which is going to get redesigned to kind of be like the old Ascot TT. And the place has a lot of flat track history, so it's exciting. You know, hopefully I can have that museum there, and it's a little closer to my house.
Oh, how far is it from your house?
It's an hour, which is less than half of the distance I travel for the other facilities.
Nice, nice. So
now I just got to figure out how I'm paying for all of it.
Gas is getting expensive now.
Yeah, worry about that later, right?
Yeah, forget that. Let's go racing. So who are your favorite riders in California? You follow the California Speedway scene, I assume.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, growing up, Bruce Penhall was like God, you know, and still is. I'm really ecstatic that he treats me very well and talks to me once in a while and has helped us out, you know. All those guys, all my heroes became my friends and have been awesome to me. You know, John Cook was just texting me the other day, and Bobby Schwartz was just so good to me, and, you know, the list goes on and on. Ronnie Preston and, you know, Kelly Moran lived at my house for 2 years, and, you know, just really fortunate to have struck up a friendship with all those guys, and I've tried to help a lot of guys over the years. I sponsored Josh Larson and Chris Manchester for a long time, and you know, those guys are just incredible talents, and both Greg Hancock and Billy Hamill and Sam Ermolenko have just been so great to me. You know, I'm so thankful that they've always had time to talk to me and help me out, and all the guys have been very approachable, you know.
That's great. Yeah, these Speedway people are pretty nice. You know, they're good, especially if you're giving back to the sport like you are, you know, helping promote it and getting it going. And so the people in Speedway, the riders and stuff are really great. And we're going to have Bruce Penhall on the show. Do you remember that name, Bruce Penhall?
Oh, yeah, I'll be watching that one. Yeah, Bruce is such a great guy.
He is. Bruce is really the best. I idolized Bruce so much when I was a young boy going to the races. He was one of my favorite riders in those white and orange leathers, the Penhall on the back. I just love Bruce Penhall. And, you know, a couple years, he was like my idol. I was like, oh, Bruce Penhall. And then the next year I was racing Bruce Penhall, and that wasn't very fun.
I actually have one of those orange and white Penhall construction sets of leathers in the garage. So.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. You have Bruce Penhall's old white leathers. You do.
Yeah, one of the sets, and a good friend of mine in Florida has another set too.
How many sets did Bruce have of those?
He probably had 4 or 5 of the orange and white sets, I think. I have a couple other sets of his too. One of his 1982 sets, the red ones, and then I've got a set that Kelsey Gordon and I had suits made for Dennis and Bruce when they went over and did Greg Hancock's testimonial, and I have both of those sets here too.
Nice. I wonder who has Bruce Penhall's LA Sprockets uniform. Do you know who has that one?
That would be a good one to find. I don't know. I'm not sure.
You would like that in your museum, the blue and gray, white,
oh, yeah.
gray LA Rockets.
Yeah, ended up with a set of Orange County Eagles ones a couple years ago, and I'm a big collector of all that kind of stuff, so those would be really neat.
Do you have a Orange County Eagle uniform now or not?
Yeah, I've got one of those, and I got a whole bunch of cool leathers. I've got Sean Moran's national championship suit. I got one of Kelly's STP suits, John Cook zebra leathers, Brad Oxley's national championship suit. I got tons of Dub Farrell, Josh Larson, Manchester Faria, everybody.
Jeez Louise. Do you have Doug Farrell's Jerry Fairchild uniform with Fairchild on the front of it, or do you have his?
I've got one of the ones that had Arai helmets on the chest, I think. It was one of the ones from like the early 80s. I don't think it was, it's not going back into the 70s.
No. Yeah, he had the Arai helmet one in the 80s, and then he had the Fairchild when he rode for Jerry Fairchild. My mechanic is Jerry Fairchild and Dub's mechanic. And Dub used to have the old set Fairchild Industries on his 70s uniform. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I love those pictures of Dub wearing the 70s Fairchild. I don't know. I just love, every time I see one of those pictures, I'm like, I like that. I want to keep that picture. I like the 70s Dub Farrell, uniform. And look, and the flames.
Yeah, he had
the blue. That's cool.
He had the classic style, hanging off the back with his arms up high. He was cool.
Dub Farrell was awesome. And Dub Farrell was my first Speedway teacher. Dub Farrell taught me how to ride, and he's a really good teacher. I mean, that guy is smart. He really was awesome. I mean, I was like a D3 rider, and then when Dub taught me, I practiced for like a off season. And I went pretty much immediately to D1 after I learned all the stuff Doug taught me. He's really a great teacher. And Doug was really nice to me, and he was my teacher. And then I was with the same mechanic. And I think Doug didn't like me that much because I was like like in his way or something like that. So I was the young lion, and I think Dub didn't really like me that much because I was like taking his tuner away from him. He was helping me too. So, but there's a little jealousy there from Dub Farrell. But we love Dub Farrell. He's a great guy. He's good. So let's see. What else were we going to go over here? Let's see. So you have a child, a boy who plays hockey. I just want to talk about that briefly. So he's a really good hockey player. How old is your kid?
He's 15 now, and he's coming up through the ranks and starting to become a real good player. So he's kind of at that point where things start happening. The phone starts ringing a little bit, and some scouts are watching, and college scouts and junior scouts, and actually had an agent call about him the other day who's been watching him on Live Barn and thinks highly of him, so cool. He's got some work to do still, but he's maybe in it with a chance, and doing pretty well.
Do you coach your son and kind of help him, give him your skills that you learned?
Yeah, definitely. I've been his coach for, the whole time, really, and we're playing in a program in Connecticut right now. Unfortunately, we got shut down with the whole COVID thing, but we were fortunate enough to get 25 games in this year so far, and a lot of places couldn't play at all. We're just waiting to see if we're going to get a chance to go back in January or not and finish the year.
Oh, yeah. That's cool. That's cool. You got some games in during the COVID time, and your son got to develop and I guess he practices, during the winter and during the summer too. I guess he gets a lot of practice time, or not really.
Yeah, he's doing an academy version that we had in Connecticut where he's actually doing his schooling right at the rink. And there's a group of 15 or 17 kids that skate in the morning, go to the gym, and then do their schooling for 4 or 5 hours, and then come back to the arena again and skate at night. And I'm one of the guys helping to run that program, so it's fun. It's hockey's not necessarily my cup of tea anymore. It's not my most favorite thing in the world just because I've spent so much of my life doing it. I'm kind of looking to do other things, but it's really rewarding, working with the children.
Oh, that's awesome. What position does your son play?
He's a left winger, but he also plays center too, my old position. I've kind of tried to get him to play a different position than I did just for different reasons, but then he really was after me to play center last season, and he played center on one of the two age groups and did a good job, so he can float around and do either position.
Awesome. I'm sure he's a great player. He is. That's cool. I didn't know any of that. So you just have one child, or you have?
No, I have a daughter who's in her last year of college right now, and she's in Binghamton, which is funny because it's down near the Speedway tracks, but it's kind of different seasons. So she caught a race or two at the end of the season when she went back to school.
Oh, very cool. Are you married now? Are you single?
No, I'm married. My wife and I have been together for 25 years. I met her when I was playing in Tampa. She's from Florida, and she's been a real trooper, putting up with all this New York weather all these years. But she's getting a little impatient to get back down to Florida in the near future. So we kind of got a deal worked out that I can keep doing the racetracks, but we got to get back to Florida in the wintertime.
Good idea. Yeah, good idea. I have some girls, and not girls, but ladies who text me all the time, and they say, "Do you know Jason?" And I say, "I don't know Jason very much." Why? And they say, "He's handsome, and we want to get to know him." And I'm like, "Really?" I even have an ex who asked me that, and I said, "I don't know Jason." And she said, "Can you find out if he's single? Because I want to date him." And I said, "Oh, I don't."
Oh boy. That's funny.
That's why I ask if you're married. So I don't want you dating my ex, so that's probably good.
Thanks.
Thank you for staying married for 25 years. But I know the Speedway community in California really appreciates you, Jason, and do all the promotion you're doing and helping Speedway, the sport, helping the many up-and-coming riders. And so I want to ask you a couple of quick questions about the championship race before we close. What do you think about that race between Billy Gennaro and Brock Nickel, the championship race? What was your feelings when you saw the last races? I guess it was the last race when they were battling it out for the championship. Do you have any ideas on that?
Well, it would have been great to have Max Rummel and Gino and a couple other guys there that are real fast. Obviously Luke Becker, but to have Billy and Brock were, two of the very best guys, and the show they put on was incredible. And to see Ronnie Corey step in there and mix it up with him too was just amazing. I mean, he's ridden a Speedway bike like 3 times in the last 12, 15 years, But the main event, I wish everybody could see the video of the main event. I wish we had it to show right now. But the main event from the first night, Saturday night, was just one of the best races I've seen in years. And Billy and Brock literally swapped the lead 4 times. It was incredible. And, that's what happens when you put 2 riders with that talent level on a track with deep dirt and multiple racing lines. I mean, they weren't even riding the pole, They swapped the lead 4 times out against the wall. It was incredible. And, to me, that's Speedway. I mean, when I watch videos of the old Irwindale and IMS, and there's a video in the old Take It to the Limit movie. I think it's like the 1974 National at Costa Mesa. And Mike Bass and Bruce Penhall and Larry Shaw, and they're all on 22s. And the dirt's knee deep, And they literally, everybody knows Mike Bass is probably going to win back then, but if you're watching the race, you couldn't pick a winner until the finish line, It was incredible. And to me, that's Speedway in its best form, and that's how we somehow got to present it to get new fans and get people into it,
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the track back in the 70s at Costa Mesa was really crazy. I have to tell you this one story. I was just a kid, a little child or whatever, and I was watching the race. And Danny Becker, he had a 22. He always rode a 22 on his back tire at Costa Mesa. And I swear, I'm not joking. I did a blog on Danny Becker, and I talked about this. So it's a true story. And I was only a little rugrat, I was like 8 years old. And I was watching Danny Becker. He went all the way out. He drifted all the way out to the wall on a 22. And then he rode the wall in a wheelie all the way, like halfway through the wall. And then he rode it all the way. And I said, I've never seen a guy ride a wheelie, crossing it up, hitting the wall. He was burning off the wall like that. I was like, oh, God. So that
was amazing.
That's exciting, right?
I was so fortunate. I saw Danny's very last ride on a Speedway bike. I was at Costa Mesa, and they had amateur afternoon. And it was right before he got sick, or he was starting to get sick, and he went out on a couple laps on Sean McConnell's Westlake, and you knew he was going to ride it on one wheel, and he did, for a couple of laps. It was so cool. I mean, what a rider.
Amazing. That guy, I bought my first bike from Danny Becker, so I got to hang out with Danny a little bit and get to know him. And
in my mind, there was like a
brand new bike. Huh?
Yeah, there's 5 or 6 guys that come to mind that just had so much natural talent that could just bring the crowd out of their seats. And it was Danny, and Rick Woods and the Morans and Bobby Ott and John Cook, and the modern version of that was Chris Manchester. I mean, he was just so naturally talented, it was ridiculous, but
those guys were insane.
Those guys are all such showmen.
They're so good. I liked Manchester when he was like 40 years old. They're like, Chris, the kid, Manchester. And then the announcer goes, no, we can't call him the kid. He's an old man. Chris, the old man, Manchester.
Same thing with Gennaro now. It's hard to call him Billy the Kid anymore. Not that old, but not a youngster anymore, though.
I would not like that name if I'm an old guy, like a long Oh, that's funny. Yeah, there's some good times. And yeah, Danny Becker, all those guys you mentioned had this talent that never stopped. And I think if Danny Becker, he wasn't he got into some substance abuses and things like that. And I think if he was kept himself clean and healthy, like all the riders nowadays do, to keep themselves in good condition, Danny Becker would have been like a national champion.
Tons of talent, that's for sure.
He was amazing. And also, I was going to ask that question. Well, first, also the race that you talked about, I saw that race. I couldn't believe it, between Brock and Billy. And was that the first night or second night?
Well, the first night was I think the best of the 5 main events, but the 4 main events on Sunday night were just as good, really. They were, swapping the leads, and Billy was riding out at the fence, and Brock was throwing dirt over the walls. Ronnie Corey snuck up underneath him. Blake Borello was hanging in there. I mean, it was cool, and I know it wasn't a sanctioned national championship, but it was the best we had for the state of the sport this season, and don't discount Gennaro by any means. He's still amazing, and he doesn't have to race as hard as he used to. He's older and has all these championships, but I don't know if he was going his absolute best, but he was putting a show on for sure. And Brock's just so hungry and so professional and such a good kid. It's great to see him have the success now,
Yeah, Brock deserves it. He's so professional. He's such a good guy. And yeah, I saw that race, and it was like Billy was in first place, and Brock passed him, and Billy passed him, and Brock passed him, and four times, and I was like, oh, and that was amazing.
I know. I mean,
crazy.
You know, I realize we're kind of the minor leagues as far as the facilities and the crowd size and everything. Although actually this year our crowds were probably better than some of the California tracks, but racetrack wise, that surface at Owego, though, when it's smooth and there's a lot of dirt, it's probably the most entertaining track to have those guys on, because it's just a little bit bigger than Costa Mesa and Fast Fridays, and a little wider corners, and they're banked and the dirt's really deep. And you put those guys out there, and it's just a fantastic show,
Amazing. Oh, that's like a perfect speedway track. And a little bank. You have a little bank towards the walls?
Yeah, it's a lot like the old South Bay, just got a little bit of banking and just a tiny bit bigger and rounder than Costa Mesa or Industry, and it just makes for some great racing when it's good.
Oh, that is awesome. I didn't know you had a bank. I thought that Victorville, Steve Evans' track was the only bank track, and now I know you have one.
Yeah, John Aiden's track's got some pretty serious banking to it, and there's some high speed around that track, but maybe not quite as much outside passing and stuff, because guys get a little worried about the wall there. But the track in Owego is fun to race hard on.
That's cool. That sounds like a fun track. And Victorville was a fast track. If you're like riding D1 and you're like opening it up full throttle, it's scary, because if you go out near that wall, you could really get in some trouble if you hit that wall at that speed.
Yeah, John's got a great racetrack there. It's just not quite ideal for Speedway anymore, but it's good that guys can still practice on it and have some fun once in a while, though.
That's cool. And I wanted to ask you a question, what did you think about, you mentioned it a little bit, but what did you think about Ronnie Corey coming out of retirement, getting third place, and being on the podium on that championship event? What did you think?
Well, I had seen a video of him ride at Industry the year before, a few exhibition laps with Dookie, and the guy is so good. I mean, I knew he could do it still. And we had talked in years past about him coming over, and it just never works out. And it was funny, because I only hit him with it about 5 days before the race, just out of the clear blue. And I sent him a message, and he says, you know what, let me think about it for an hour. I don't even think it was an hour, and he said yes. And he's just so talented, You don't go from being a 5-time world finalist and one of the best guys in the world to not being able to do it anymore, no matter how many years go by. And Sam's still the same way. He's amazing. I would love to see those guys, race some of the younger kids here still, and they have at my place, and they're still very competitive.
Oh, yeah. I mean, those guys could get out and just burn it. I saw Brad Oxley come out of retirement back few years ago, and, that guy could still ride. He was riding D1 like cold turkey, and then Brad was like at the Industry Hills. He had a brand new set of leathers, and I'm like watching him, and he's like competing with the D1 riders and just cold turkey. I mean, these guys have talent. Oh,
yeah, no doubt.
And yeah, it'd be fun to see old timers race between like Greg Hancock, Sam Ermolenko, Billy Hamill. That would be good.
I have an idea that I'm going to throw at some of those guys this summer, maybe for like a Golden Greats thing, but they're so fast that they really need to race in the regular program, but New York's perfect, though, because it's kind of low-key and no pressure, and they can come back here and just have some fun, and I know Josh Larson still would like to ride a couple of times and probably will, so we'll work on those guys.
Those guys are fast. Those guys haul. Josh is amazing. All those guys are crazy. And, oh, God. And,
hopefully we haven't seen the last of Greg, too. I mean, I know he's been out riding lately, and he just looks flawless. I I hope he'll do a few shows, just to have some fun and still ride once in a while. He's just so good at it still. It'd be a shame not to see him ride a few more times.
He needs to get out there. I'm trying to get Greg Hancock on the show, and I'm going to talk to him and ask him, you got to get out and just keep your body in shape. You're going to be old if you don't ride Speedway.
Oh, he's amazing.
He is such a legend, like not only America, but all over the world. And Greg Hancock's like the most famous Speedway rider probably ever.
Yeah, just such a class act, I mean, done so much for the sport. And I always tell everybody, if he were a professional football player here in the States, there would have been a movie about him. To be top of the world at 48, 49, 50 years old is incredible. I mean, Jaromir Jagr was the only athlete I can compare him to in recent years, who was able to stay at the top level. And even he had to bow out earlier, Greg, right now, Greg could still go race in the Grand Prix. There's no doubt.
Oh, no doubt. I'm sure they'd love to have Greg Hancock back for promotion too, because he's a big name.
Oh, yeah.
He would do good. Greg is just amazing. I mean, he's got a young son, Wilbur. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Wilbur's cool. He's doing real well, it looks like, and he's really dedicated to his program. I bought some parts from Greg a couple weeks ago and sent an extra $20 and just said, hey, sorry I can't do more, but give this to Wilbur for his entry fee because I love watching him ride. He's cool.
He's a good guy. And I'm sure we're going to hear more about Wilbur Hancock in the future, like as far as when he gets on the big bikes. And if he has half of his dad's talent, he's going to be a champion.
Yeah, well, the big thing with Greg was just he had the whole package, the class, the charisma, the dedication, and then the talent, So if he's got his dad's dedication, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, well, he has a good teacher. Like your son. Your son has a good hockey teacher, and Greg's son has a good Speedway teacher. And
That's right.
Greg Hancock, he taught me in 2006 or something. He gave me some lessons over in Paris, and he was really good teacher. So Wilbur has a good teacher in Greg. And Wilbur watches the show, and Wilbur's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a cool kid.
Yeah, he's cool. He's really good. And he's got a great teacher. If you have Greg Hancock as your teacher, you're not doing very bad.
Doesn't get any better than that, does it?
Oh, what do you do? So, hey, is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Oh, I don't know. I think the future of the sport, is the big thing for me. We're really trying to step it up in New York, and I hope to God that industry in Costa Mesa can get back going this season and Fast Fridays. It's got to be killing those guys not to be racing, and I'm really hopeful eventually we can all kind of get together in some fashion and have some sort of a series and kind of spread this thing out and expose it to the masses again,
Exactly. Yeah. A full race season is really going to help out, and it's going to help develop these young riders, giving them more seat time.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big dreams I've had for a lot of years, and maybe I'm getting to the age where I got to start really figuring out a way to try to do it, is just to take this thing on the road a little bit. I just am a firm believer that it's not going to grow much if just 3 or 4 of us are promoting it and we're just sitting around in our own backyards running our racetracks. Somehow we got to piggyback this thing off of a motorsports series or some sort of a series that has a fan base that we can expose it to, and there's some ideas that could be developed on that end.
Oh, absolutely. That's true. And if you could promote that into something like, I don't know, some kind of series or, something, that would be really great. It'd be nice if we could get involved with like the Supercross and have a Speedway track on a Supercross at the same night with 50, 60,000 people.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I mean, the no-brainer to me that would be the most logical and easiest to get started with would be the AFT guys. And they've done a good job of reviving dirt track now. It was kind of on its deathbed, and now all of a sudden it's getting real popular again. And there's a couple interesting scenarios. If they would get involved, I think they could do a lot of good for it. And on the other side of the fence, Speedway is a no-brainer for them. They don't realize it yet, but I mean, if they had a good entertainment show like that the night before the AFT races in a parking lot with, 30 or 40,000 people hanging out there, then that would be really good for them, So, or maybe not that many people with the AFT stuff, but like NASCAR or one of the car race series, for example, the same thing. They got all these thousands of people camping out the evening before. Speedway is such a rock star of a show if you put it on correctly, and it's there in people's faces, and the fans can get close to it. There's got to be a way we can do something, and hopefully with guys like Greg getting back involved in it in the States, maybe some opportunities can be had.
Oh, no doubt. And that's one of the complaints that I talk to some of these younger riders, and they say, God, if we're all willing, and all these young guys have all this talent to put on a great show, because we have some amazing riders, now as older riders like Gennaro, and we have some younger riders, we have the Nichols, and then we have all these young riders coming up, and Northern California has all these young riders. I mean, there's talent all over the place.
Yeah, we just got to keep this thing going somehow, We all love it so much, and we know what a great small secret it is, really, We got to figure out how to get it back out there.
Exactly. That's the thing. Well, thank you so much for joining us at the Hive today, Jason. And we really appreciate your support of Speedway, your love of Speedway, and people love you because you're so involved in the sport, and that's really nice. And so, great job in New York, and keep it. Good luck on your new track. So we hope that works out really good for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's just been my whole life, I'm just trying to get back a little bit and keep it going.
That's awesome. And thank you so much. And thank you for your time, your dedication, your hard work, your money putting into the sport, buying all those 100 Speedway bikes. And
yeah.
Well,
thanks for doing the show. It's good that former riders like yourself are getting involved and helping in different ways. There's several podcasts going around now. We got one here on the East Coast, and Greg's on a lot of that stuff now. And it's the more that guys get involved and do different things to help promote it. It's a team effort.
It is, and the more the merrier, and the more we get involved. We do this because we love the sport. We want to see it grow. We do this to educate people. Maybe people go on YouTube and they get to see these stories and these interviews, and they want to go check it out. And we want to try to help promote and bring up the sport of Speedway.
That's what it's all about.
And thank you so much, Jason. And thanks for joining us at the Hive today, and all your great experience and your leadership, and the Speedway really appreciates all that you do. So we want to thank you, Jason. So thank you so much.
Thank you, much appreciated.
Thanks for joining the live stream. And
no problem. Have a great Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas, bro, and just enjoy, and I wish you all the best for 2021, and I hope things go really good for everybody in the sport, including you in New York. So thank you so much for joining us, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, bro. Take care. And so we had Jason Bonsignore, and Jason's an awesome guy, and he just loves Speedway, and that's just awesome, and that's really cool. And thank you, Jason, for joining the show. We have some Speedway riders coming up in the show that you might be interested in. We have Bruce the Fox Penhall, and Bruce is going to be joining us here soon, I think after Christmas or the New Year. So stay tuned. Jason says, I want to watch Bruce Penhall. and Bruce is going to be on the show. And we have other great riders soon, like Brock Nickel. Brock Nichols, the 2020 National Championship rider at the Outlaw Speedway, Jason's track. We just talked to Jason. And we have Brock Nickel in the hive soon. We're trying to line him up. Hopefully next we can get Brock. And we have other great speedway riders like Gene Woods, Bobby Hunter, one of the best female riders ever. And we have Larry Costa. Do you know Larry Costa? I used to race that guy back in the day, and he's good. He used to race in Europe. And we have many, many more riders and stuff. And so from the hive, from the beehive, I want to wish you and your family a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year in the year 2021. And we all hope that Speedway comes back next year in full force and all the tracks are running. So if you like the content of this channel and the live stream shows, we're going to do a whole bunch more. We have promoters. We have lots of people lined up to do the show. So we're going to go ahead and have some fun. And go ahead and subscribe if you like the content. Ring the bell for future live stream notifications. We're going to have some really great riders. We have a whole stack full of people we want to get back on the show. So thank you so much for staying with us in this live stream. And we're going to go ahead and end the show. And we're going to talk to you soon. Thank you so much for joining us. Talk to you soon. Take care.